Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here, and I've got a very urgent report to share with you guys, and one that the mainstream media, in conjunction with your big tech giants, your Facebook, Twitter, Google, all of them, are going to do everything in their power to make sure you don't remember what I'm about to share with you. You see, the US government over the past couple hundred years has conducted experiment after experiment on unwilling populations. They've done it on entire cities. They've done it to prison populations. They've done it to the mentally disabled, and they've also done it to mentally disabled children. Well, in today's report, in light of everything that's happening today with the COVID-19 pandemic, I intend to dive through some of the democide, death by U.S. government that has happened over the years here in the United States of America. This is going to be part one of the report. And then part two, which I really can't discuss here on this kind of platform, is going to be conducted by Justice Knight on RestrictedRepublic.com. And he's going to get into the current stuff that is happening in the United States of America. Because remember, these kinds of experiments don't get revealed until about 40 to 100 years later. So get on over to RestrictedRepublic.com to hear part two of this. And right now, you've got 14-day free trial just to try it out. You can cancel whenever you want. But on top of that, we're also giving it away for $5 per month for 2 years. Use the code FREEDOM to get that. All kinds of other information is on there as well. So let's dive in to some of these experiments that have happened over the years to the American people by the U.S. government. The first one here is on a more leftist group, news site, if you will, that actually revealed it. But this is on thedailybeast.com, how the U.S. government enforced prohibition by poisoning Americans. Yes, you heard that right. During Prohibition, the U.S. government doctored the industrial alcohol supply with dangerous substances like methanol. 10,000 people have believed to have died as a result. So the U.S. government poisons the alcohol during Prohibition. This didn't happen, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. This was during Prohibition. And as a result, 10,000 people were said to have died. And in case you want a leftist fact check, we can do that on USA Today. Fact check, it's true. The U.S. government poisoned some alcohol during Prohibition. Let's go on over to some other things the U.S. government did here. We have the Washington Post. The tainted polio vaccine that sickened and fatally paralyzed children in 1955. It was one of the worst biological disasters in American history, one scholar wrote. Now, the article goes on to state that an estimated 120,000 children that year were injected with the Cutter vaccine, according to Paul A. Outfit, director of the Vaccine Education Center at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Roughly 40,000 of them got polio with fever, sore throat, headache, vomiting, and muscle pain. 51 were paralyzed and 5 died. Outfit wrote in his 2005 book, The Cutter Incident, how America's first polio vaccine led to the growing vaccine crisis. Interesting. There's that one as well. Here's another event that happened, and this is on Los Angeles Times. Clinton actually apologized for this, right? Clinton apologizes for radiation tests. Experiments. Cabinet will study compensation for some victims and their families. About 4,000 America's deadliest secrets. Secret studies were conducted through 1974 and were finally disclosed, right? Years and years and years later. 4,000 secret studies. This is massive. Can you really trust the government in light of everything that's going on today with the COVID-19 pandemic? Get to RestrictedRepublic.com for that next report. And here's another one here. BusinessInsider.com. One of the largest human experiments in history was conducted on unsuspecting residents of San Francisco, right? The article goes on to state, and this is on Business Insider, folks, one fact many may not know about is San Francisco's fog is that in 1950, the U.S. military conducted a test to see whether it could be used to help spread a biological weapon, right, in a simulated germ warfare attack. This was just the start of many such studies around the country that would go on in secret for years. The test was a success, right? One of the largest human experiments done in human history. The article goes on, a successful biological warfare attack. It all began in late September of 1950 when over a few days, a Navy vessel used giant hoses to spray fog of two kinds of bacteria. And it included these two kinds here. But both were believed at the time to be harmless to humans. But they put it out into the fog where they disappeared and spread over the city. Now, the article goes on to say that nearly all of San Francisco received 500 particle minutes per liter. In other words, nearly every one of the 800,000 people in San Francisco were exposed to the cloud at a normal breathing rate, and they inhaled 5,000 or more of these particles per minute. During the several hours they remained airborne. This is a test done on 800,000 people without their consent. U.S. government, can they be trusted? Here's another one here. How about the Guatemalan syphilis experiment, right? This is another experiment done by the government here. Now, this article goes on to kind of expand on that. And here's what it says. Guatemalan syphilis experiment, American medical research project that lasted from 1946 through 1948 and is known for its unethical experimentation on vulnerable human populations in Guatemala. Now, the object of the study was to test the value of different medications, including the antibiotic penicillin and the arsenical agent ovaris, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that word, in the prevention of symptom emergency following infection of certain STDs. Now, a diagnostic testing arm of the study investigated methods to refine the STD screening techniques, and the total study population, this is a huge number, included more than 5,500 Guatemalan prisoners, sex workers, soldiers, children, psychiatric patients, and about 1/4 of whom were deliberately infected with things like syphilis and gonorrhea, and all of whom were enrolled in the experiment without their consent. 5,500 there with Guatemala, and we have 800,000 in San Francisco. We have 10,000 people who could have died or were projected to have died as a result to the poisoning of the alcohol system, and so much more. But let's go on. Here we have independent.co.uk. The U.S. Navy tested mustard gas on its own sailors. In 1943, the Americans used humans in secret experiments. Patrick Cockburn in Washington reports on the survivors who bared the scars. Then we have the CDC. This is an actual admission of the Tuskegee timeline. Now, the study begins with this, and the article goes on to state this, that Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male. The study initially involved 600 black men, 399 with syphilis, 201 who did not have the disease. The study was conducted without the benefit of the patient's informed consent. Researchers told the men that they were being treated for bad blood, a local term used to describe several ailments, including syphilis, anemia, and fatigue. In truth, they did not receive the proper treatment needed to cure their illness. In exchange for taking part in the study, the men received free medical exams, free meals, and burial insurance. Although it was originally projected to only last 6 months, the study went on for 40 years. 40 years. What went wrong? Well, the panel found out that the men agreed freely to be examined and treated. However, there was no evidence that the research had informed them of the study and its real purpose. They didn't tell them all the details. In fact, the men had been misled and had not been given all the facts required to provide informed consent, right? And they were never given adequate treatment for their disease. Thanks to the U.S. government. Let's go on to a little more. Here we have the Washington Post. A report suggests the CIA's involvement in Florida illnesses. What happened in Florida? Well, the CIA may have conducted open-air tests of whooping cough bacteria in Florida in the mid-1950s, when state medical records show a whooping cough outbreak killed 12 persons, according to a Church of Scientology analysis on the agency records. The Scientologist said the examination of about 150 pages of financial records released in recent years by the CIA indicates that the agency conducted at least one open-air biological test along Florida's Gulf Coast in 1955. Let's just release some whooping cough mosquitoes. And of course, you've got whooping cough there. That's the kind of experiments they're doing. But the CIA didn't stop there. We also have Project Artichoke. I've done a lot of information on this as well on Restricted Republic, but basically this is a CIA mind control program run by the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence in collaboration with the elements of the Intelligence Division of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the FBI. The primary goal of this particular project was to determine whether a person could be involuntarily made to perform an act of attempted assassination, right? It also focused on hypnosis, right? It forced morphine addiction into their people and also used other chemicals like LSD to produce amnesia and other vulnerable states in subject. Now, Artichoke also was the forerunner to MK Ultra, which I've talked about on my channel as well. So you've got MK Ultra, you've got Project Artichoke, and you've also got Bluebird. These are all experiments done by the CIA. And there's MK Ultra in case you want more information. But here's a little more. This is on pbs.org, right? And it's report. Medical experiments were conducted on U.S. prisoners and patients, right? In an article released this week, AP reporter Mike Straub details new revelations about medical experiments conducted decades ago by the U.S. government. Most of the experiments are 40 to 80 years old and include giving hepatitis to mental patients in Connecticut, squirting a pandemic flu virus up the nose of prisoners in Maryland, and injecting cancer cells into chronically ill people at a New York hospital. Straub and his researchers uncovered 40 dubious experiments by combing through medical journalists and news reports at the time, 40 of them. Here's another one, dailymail.co.uk. This details a few more of those, but America's shocking secret, pictures that show how U.S. experimented on its own disabled citizens and prison inmates. You can see one of these pictures there, but the article goes on to state this, that U.S. officials also acknowledged that there had been dozens of similar experiments in America, studies that involved making healthy people sick. And again, a review by the AP of medical journalist reports and decades-old press clippings found more than 40 such of these studies at best. These were a search for life-saving treatments at worst. Some of these amounted to basically curiosity, satisfying experiments that hurt people and had useful or basically dumb and no results. Now, the article also goes on to state this. Most of the recently revealed studies from the 1940s to the 1960s apparently were never covered by the news media. Do you think that the media today is going to cover what's going on right now if they didn't do it then? No. That's why I created Restricted Republic with Justice Knight. Others were reported at the time, but the focus was on the promise of enduring new cures while glossing over how test subjects were treated. That is exactly why I don't trust the United States government. Do you trust the United States government? I think this is a question that we need to start asking people. When some of the experiments that they've done don't come out till 40 to 100 years later, and you may or may not be involved in that, especially in light of everything that's happening today, in light of all of it. Anyhow, as a reminder, please make sure you check out my partner at noblegoldinvestments.com right now. With any approved IRA or 401k, they are giving away this American Eagle gold coin here, and you can see it. This is one of my favorite giveaways that they do. I love the packing and just what this thing is worth and what it can go up in the future, because it is a keepsake item. But right now you can get it with any 401k or IRA that you do, with any approved one that they have at noblegoldinvestments.com. But give them a call today and make sure you are diversifying your profile and you have something other than the dollar, such as gold, precious metals, and silvers for your Roth IRA. But check them out at 1-877-646-5347. Anyhow, thank you so much for tuning into the channel. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.